Video 1. Title 1. The Unbelievable Story of the Statue of Liberty, 1865-1886. Title 2. The Hidden Story of the Statue of Liberty, 1865-1886. Thumbnail. She holds a torch to light up the world, but nobody looks at what she carries at her feet. Chains, broken, hidden beneath meters of copper and centuries of official narrative. The Statue of Liberty was born as a cry against slavery, and it was transformed into something else entirely before it ever touched American soil. This is the story you won't find on any tourist plaque. It was the 18th of November, 1865, a summer dinner at a castle in Versailles. The American Civil War had ended just months before. Abraham Lincoln had been dead for 6 months, and a circle of French intellectuals debated, between glasses of red wine and the scent of warm candle wax, a question that consumed them: how to commemorate the end of slavery in the United States. The man leading that debate was named Edouard de La Boulaye, a law professor, a passionate abolitionist, a devoted admirer of the American Republic. And that evening, La Boulaye spoke words that no one at the table could have imagined would reshape the skyline of a city forever. He said if France and America were to build together a monument to freedom, it would be the work of two peoples. What he didn't say was for whom, exactly, that freedom would be dedicated. La Boulaye wasn't thinking about European immigrants crossing the Atlantic. He wasn't thinking about crowded ports or the American dream. He was thinking about 4 million men and women who had been the property of other human beings just months before, the enslaved people freed by the Civil War. For La Boulaye, American freedom had a specific face, and that face was black. Sitting beside La Boulaye that evening was Frederick Auguste Bartholdi, 31 years old, a sculptor, as ambitious as they come. He listened to the idea and saw something La Boulaye wasn't offering: the largest sculpture in the world, eternal glory. The name Bartholdi etched into history forever. He accepted the project. But from that dinner onward, the two men looked at the same statue and saw completely different things. The original concept was straightforward: a woman raising a torch, broken chains at her feet, a symbol without ambiguity, slavery destroyed. The torch wasn't decoration. It was the flame of emancipation, and the chains weren't architectural details. They were proof that something had been crushed so that freedom could exist. La Boulaye wanted the world to see the cost of American liberty, but the cost would turn out to be higher than he had calculated. In 1871, Bartholdi crossed the ocean for the first time. He came to survey American territory, find the perfect location, and win political backing. What he found unsettled him. Post-war Reconstruction was falling apart. The southern states were resisting integration of formerly enslaved people with violence. The Ku Klux Klan was burning down homes, and northern politicians, worn out by war, wanted to forget everything it had cost. But there's a detail nobody talks about. Before crossing the Atlantic toward America, Bartholdi had already tried to sell the same concept to another country, Egypt. He sketched a colossal female figure to stand at the entrance of the newly opened Suez Canal, a lighthouse of progress. The Egyptians refused. The idea became available. Bartholdi then looked toward the Atlantic and saw a far greater opportunity. Back in Paris, La Boulaye and Bartholdi began planning in earnest. There was, however, a problem neither of them would admit out loud. To raise the largest statue in the world, they would need American support, and American support meant American politics. And American politics in 1871 had one particular fear: openly celebrating blackness in a country still bleeding from racial warfare. Chapter 2. Paris, 1875. Bartholdi's studio smelled of heated copper and damp sawdust. Dozens of workers hammered metal sheets over wooden molds, building the skin of a giantess. The head was already finished, displayed like a mountain split in half, its eyes hollow and the size of a doorway. No one on the scaffolding imagined they were forging the most recognizable symbol of the coming century. Engineer Alexandre Gustave Eiffel was brought in to solve the impossible. How do you make a 33-meter copper structure stay upright without collapsing under its own weight? Eiffel designed an internal iron backbone that no one would ever see from the outside, an inner framework of beams and springs that allowed the statue to sway up to 45 centimeters in strong winds without cracking. On the outside, freedom. On the inside, cold and precise engineering, like the mechanism of a Swiss clock. Meanwhile, the statue's face sparked rumors that were never fully put to rest. Some claimed Bartholdi had modeled the features after his own mother. Others insisted the original model was a black woman, a formerly enslaved person found in the American South. There was never any confirmation. There was never any official denial. The records of the face's model vanished with a convenience that raises too many questions. What remained was the face the world knows today, and the question almost no one asks. On the American side, chaos. The pedestal needed to be built with American money, and nobody wanted to pay. Congress refused to fund it. The governors of the wealthiest states ignored the appeals. New York, which would receive the statue, voted against funding 3 times in a row. The greatest symbolic gift in the world had stalled for lack of $400,000. It was a Hungarian immigrant who rescued the project. Joseph Pulitzer, owner of the New York World newspaper, launched a public fundraising campaign in 1885. Every cent donated would be published alongside the donor's name. Factory workers, street vendors, children sending in 5-cent coins. In 5 months, more than 120,000 people donated enough to finish the pedestal. The Foundation of Liberty was built with the money of those who had almost nothing. But there was a political price the American funders collected in silence. The statue's story needed to change. It could not be a monument to the end of black slavery. That was divisive, disturbing. The South still bled with resentment. The statue should be celebrated as a symbol of friendship between nations, of universal liberty, abstract, colorless, without a specific history. The face of the original intended recipient was swept from the official narrative before the dedication even took place. The chains at her feet were kept, Bartholdi insisted, but they were positioned so that no one would find them without deliberately searching. The figure walks over them, treads on them. To see the chains, you have to get close, look down, step outside the tourist's angle. No official photograph has ever highlighted them. No postcard has ever shown them. They are there, hidden in plain sight for more than 130 years. Laboulaye died in May of 1883, 3 years before the dedication. He never saw the statue standing. He never heard the roar of the crowds at the port of New York. He passed away knowing the project had survived without knowing what it had become. The man who dreamed of a monument to black emancipation was gone before he could see his dream transformed into something else. In 1884, Emma Lazarus wrote a poem to help raise money for the pedestal. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. The words were forgotten for decades. Only in 1903, 17 years after the dedication, was the poem engraved on a plaque, inside the pedestal, not on the exterior, inside, like a secret nobody needed to see. Chapter 3. October 28th, 1886. Fog swallowed New York Harbor. Hundreds of vessels sounded their horns. Thousands of people packed the shoreline. President Grover Cleveland stepped up to the podium. It was the most anticipated day in 21 years of work. That same day, a delegation of black citizens from New York attempted to reach the dedication ceremony. They were turned away. The inauguration of a statue built in honor of freedom was segregated. The descendants of the very men and women for whom Laboulaye had conceived the monument were not permitted to attend their own dedication. A group rented a boat and sailed around the island while the ceremony took place. They shouted. They held up signs. Their voices were swallowed by the roar of cannons fired in celebration. Gunpowder smoke blanketed the gray sky. The torch was lit, and the only people who should have been celebrating were the only ones who were kept out. President Cleveland spoke for 20 minutes without uttering the word slavery once, without mentioning the Civil War, without acknowledging the 4 million people who had been freed. He spoke of friendship between France and America. He spoke of progress. He spoke of civilization. Slavery had been surgically removed from the speech with the precision of someone editing a manuscript before it goes to print. In the days that followed, newspapers across the country ran the dedication as a new beginning, a promise, a beacon for all. And in some ways, they were right. But that new beginning had buried a truth beneath tons of copper. The beacon was lit over the ruins of its original meaning. The promise was genuine. The forgetting was too. In the decades that came after, the Statue of Liberty absorbed a significance Laboulaye never envisioned. It became the symbol of European immigration. Italians, Irish, Polish, Jewish people arriving on packed ships and catching sight of that figure through the mist. For them, it was real. The emotion was visceral. The symbol had changed hands without anyone noticing, without anyone asking permission, without anyone being held responsible for abandoning the original purpose. Today, 40 million people visit or catch a glimpse of the statue every year. Very few know there are chains at her feet. Even fewer know who she was built for. The tourist takes a photo, rides the elevator, reads the plaque with Emma Lazarus's poem inside the pedestal. They don't know the poem was added 17 years after the dedication. They don't know the ceremony was segregated. They don't know the man who dreamed her up died before he ever saw her. The paradox is brutal and silent. A monument erected to celebrate the end of black slavery was inaugurated while excluding black people. A symbol of freedom was built while those it was conceived for were living under Jim Crow laws, without the right to vote, without the right to enter. The torch that lights up the world was kindled over a deliberate, careful, and nearly perfect erasure. The chains are still there, beneath everything, broken, just as Laboulaye intended, trampled on, just as official history wanted them to be forgotten. The Statue of Liberty is both genuine and false at the same time. It is the most honest and most dishonest symbol America ever produced. And perhaps that is exactly why it still fascinates us. Because every great idea carries within it the shadow of what it betrayed. If this story made you see something you thought you knew in a whole new light, subscribe to the channel. Every week, a new story that turns the past completely upside down.